It is a tale of two factions, a detained leader and a power struggle that reveals the fault lines threatening to tear the indigenous people of Biafra apart. On one side, you have the IPOB Directorate of State, its highest decision-making body, now led by Chika Edoziem. They've made an unprecedented move. They have gone ahead to indefinitely suspend the office of the Leader of IPOB and the position of Director of Radio Biafra, both previously held by the man who has been the movement's face for a decade, Nnamdi Kanu. In a statement, Edoziem justified this drastic action as a protective measure. The DOS, that's the Directorate of State, cited intelligence report about a meeting between Kanu and Nigerian security agencies, concerns that communications from Kanu's prison have led to the arrest and death of members, and fears that a new militia is being formed to ignite violence. So take note of that point. The Directorate of State of IPOB fears that a new militia is being formed to ignite violence. The DOS argued that a decentralized leadership structure is necessary for the movement's survival, declaring that no individual has the authority to dissolve its central leadership structure. This is an administrative dispute, a fundamental claim that the movement is now bigger than the man who created it. Do you think so? On the other side is the IPOB faction, speaking through its Media and Publicity Secretary, Ima Powerful, which has fiercely rejected this coup. This faction insists that Nnamdi Kanu remains the supreme leader and that he lawfully dissolved the Edoziem-led DOS administration before this suspension was announced, replacing it with a new leadership headed by Chris Nwaọgụ. For this faction, the move by Edoziem is illegal, null and void. The authority, they argue, rests exclusively with Kanu, even from prison. As one statement put it, the authority of the supreme leader remains supreme, unquestionable, and binding on all members. Now, let's look at the implications of this quarrel within IPOB. It is a fight for the very soul of the movement. The movement is stuck in a paradox. Its founder, Nnamdi Kanu, is a convicted prisoner with a life sentence. He is not just a leader. He has been symbolically elevated to a quasi-sacred status, the supreme leader. He is the martyr, the voice from behind bars, the living embodiment of the struggle. His authority is absolute and unquestionable. This is a powerful tool for mobilizing the base, but it is also a fatal structural vulnerability. A movement that centralizes all powers in a single inaccessible individual is a movement that cannot evolve or adapt. It is frozen in time, emotionally and strategically. The Edoziem faction is arguing that operational necessity, intelligence, and the safety of members require a more pragmatic, decentralized approach, a distributed network that can withstand state pressure. The Kanu loyalists argue that such pragmatism is a betrayal of the movement's sacred founding principles. Both sides are using the language of constitutionality. The Kanu loyalists argue that only their interpretation of the IPOB Code of Conduct is correct, that it gives Kanu the power to hire and fire anyone, anywhere, at any time. The Edoziem faction argues that the Directorate of State itself is the apex institution and that its decisions are constitutional. This is a collision between a formal and a written constitution and the unruly reality of charismatic authority. IPOB is discovering that its constitution is merely a rubber stamp for the will of its charismatic founder, a charter for a dictatorship of the leader. And now that the leader is in prison, the system is being tested. The Edoziem faction's suspension of Kanu's office can be seen as a desperate act of survival. By accusing Kanu of creating violence, they are trying to save the movement's non-violent reputation. By questioning Nnamdi Kanu's judgment, they are protecting the lives of their members from a leader whose unguarded utterances are being monitored and used against them. How did they arrive at that conclusion? Nnamdi Kanu is the face of IPOB. Nnamdi Kanu stands his ground. Even in court, Nnamdi Kanu stands tall. He has never appeared as a man who is afraid of defending his ideals. Even in court, he speaks boldly. Will a new IPOB come soon? By questioning Nnamdi Kanu's judgment, they argue that they are protecting the lives of their members from a leader whose unguarded utterances are being monitored and used against members of IPOB. It is a brutal, pragmatic claim. Their statement reads, "The leader's actions are a liability to the cause." That is the words they used. The leader's actions are a liability to the cause. This is the language of political realism. The Kanu loyalists, on the other hand, have framed this as a monstrous betrayal, an act of gross insubordination, and a power grab by a group that had been lawfully dissolved. They are using the language of loyalty and martyrdom, which is the language of emotional survival for a movement under siege. Here is the most insidious implication of all. The Edoziem faction is in effect claiming that the command structure itself has been compromised by the Nigerian state. They are arguing that the state is using their own leader to dismantle the movement, but the Kanu loyalists can level the same charge. Who is a foreign agent and who is a patriot? In a climate of mistrust and conspiracy, this is an impossible question to answer, and is one of the most effective ways for a state to destroy a movement from within. In the end, this crisis is a classic tragedy of revolution. A classic tragedy of revolution. It is the story of a movement that has outgrown its own methods. It cannot function without its leader, but its leader cannot function without creating chaos. What do you think? The question for IPOB is no longer just about Biafra. It is about its own ability to exist. Can a movement built on the charisma of one man survive the loss of that man? Or does it face the final bitter fate of all such movements, self-destruction, before the enemy can even deliver the final blow? I would like to get your feedback.